जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from the first canto, 16th chapter. The chapter is titled as How Parikshit Received the Age of Kali. Text number 17 and 18. Text 17 does not have a purport, so we will read 17 and then take the 18th purport also. We will chant 17th. तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहन् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। माताजी। तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिमन्वहम् नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे। Word to word meanings. Tasya of Parikshit Maharaj. Evam thus. Vartamanasya remaining absorbed in such thought. Purvesham of his forefathers. Vrittim good engagement. Anvaham day after day. Na not. Atidure far off. Kila verily. Ascharyam astonishing. Yad that. Asit was. Tat which. Niboda know it. May from me. Translation. Now you may hear from me of what happened while Maharaj Parikshit was passing his days hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. Verse number 18. Dharmaha padai kena charan vichayam upalabhyagam pruchati sma shruvadanam vivitsamiva mataram. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of religious principles, Dharma, was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus, Dharma questioned the earth as follows. Purport. The bull is the emblem of the moral principle, and the cow is the representative of the earth. When the bull and the cow are in a joyful mood, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful mood. The reason is that the bull helps production of grains in the agricultural field, and the cow delivers milk. The miracle of aggregate food values. The human society therefore maintains these two important animals very carefully so that they can wander everywhere in cheerfulness. But at the present moment, in this age of Kali, both the bull and the cow are now being slaughtered and eaten up as foodstuff by a class of men who do not know the Brahminical culture. The bull and the cow can be protected for the good of all human society simply by the spreading of the Brahminical culture as the topmost perfection of all cultural affairs. By advancement of such culture, the morale of society is properly maintained, and so peace and prosperity are also attained without extraneous effort. When Brahminical culture deteriorates, the cow and bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So let's do a brief recap of what has happened in this chapter till now, and then we will take it forward from there. So Parikshit has been enthroned as the king. So he is ruling under the guidance of the best of the Brahmanas. He marries Iravati and bore 4 sons from her, starting with Janamejaya. And he accepts Kripacharya as his guru, and he performs 3 horse sacrifices. One time, while he was touring his kingdom, Srila Sutta Goswami mentions that he punished Kali personified, who was dressed as a Shudra, and he was kicking a cow and a bull. He punished him very severely. At this point of time, Shaunaka gets a doubt. He says, why did he just punish Kali? Why did he not kill that Shudra? He had all the power to kill the Shudra. Why did he just punish him and let him go? After asking this question, there is a very, very interesting thing that they present. Because Shaunaka Rishis are not interested in hearing any mundane conversation. So they say, Tat Katyatam Mahabhaga Yadi Krishna Katashrayam Atavasya Padamboja Makarandaliham Satam. So they say, Tat Katyatam Mahabhaga, O great soul Sutta Goswami, Tat Katyatam, you may choose to speak on this subject matter, Yadi Krishna Katashrayam. If this subject matter is connected directly to Krishna, if this is going to nourish my faith in Krishna, you may speak about it. Or, Atava Asya Padamboja Makaranda Liham Satam. Or if it is going to speak about the activities of the devotees who are busy licking the honey from the lotus feet of the Lord, you may speak about it. Otherwise, please do not speak about this subject matter. Right? And then they say, Kimanyair asadalapair ayusho yad asadvyayah kshudrayusham nrinamanga martyanam mritamicchatam. O Suta Goswami, for those men who desire Krishna, they don't desire anything from Krishna, they desire Krishna as their prayojan. What is the use of material talks which are a waste of life for a short-lived humanity? And then they say that, don't worry, we have called Yamaraj here for hearing this. So while he is busy, no one need to worry about death. One can overcome death just by hearing Krishna Katha. Like that. So then after hearing this, Suta Goswami starts narrating. He accepts the proposal. Yadi Krishna Katashrayam. If it has any connection with Krishna, direct connection, then you may speak. So Suta Goswami accepts this proposal. He does not say, no, this has no connection with Krishna, so I will not speak about this subject matter. So because it has some connection with Krishna, Suta Goswami chooses to speak on this subject matter. He says, when Parikshit Maharaj was staying in the Kuru Jangala province, he was inspecting his kingdom, and at that particular point of time, he heard the unpleasant news that Kali had arrived. So immediately he took up his bow and he went out to check and also collect some taxes from the various provinces. So he moves to various provinces like conquering Bhadrashva, Ketumala, Bharatavarsha, all these different varshas which are inaccessible to, all of us. So he conquered all those places and collected taxes. And all these places where he was going, he was hearing that the Pandavas were being glorified. The Pandavas were being glorified for their connection with Krishna. Saratya Parashada Sevana Sakya Dautya Veerasananu Stavana Pranaman Snigdeshu Pandushu Jagat Pranatimscha Vishnor Bhaktim Karotin Rupatis Charanaravinde. So when he heard from all these people about how Krishna acted as their charioteer, follower, servant, friend, messenger, etc., he felt very inspired. I mean, it's interesting because he was going around checking out what people are talking about his rule, but everyone was talking about the Pandavas actually, his predecessors. But he felt very happy because it was in connection with Krishna. Yadi Krishna Katashrayam. Right? So he expressed devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. So he felt connected to Krishna by experiencing that connection that Krishna had with his grandfathers. Then we see today's verse. So then, when he was going in this way, Suta Goswami says, one very astonishing thing happened. Parikshit Maharaj observed something very astonishing. What was it? Dharma was moving about on one leg. Dharma the bull. And Dharma saw a cow with no effulgence. She had tears in her eyes, as if she had lost a calf. And Dharma inquired from the cow. Okay. So, I was just thinking that in the coming days and weeks and probably a month or so, definitely this subject matter will be discussed in great detail about how Kali punished, how Parikshit Maharaj punished Kali, and the conversation between, Dharma and the cow and Parikshit Maharaj and all that. And there will be a lot of discussion on this topic. So I thought today I'll use this opportunity to, in one sense, set the context for this whole conversation. Okay. Because the context for the whole conversation has been already set by Shaunakadi Rishis. So they say, Tat Katyatam Mahabhaga Yadi Krishna Katashrayam Atava Asya Padamboja Makaranda Liham Satam. If it has connection with Krishna, if it is going to nourish my faith in Krishna, you may please speak about it. Otherwise, please do not speak. So, we are going to discuss today on this theme. One of the themes that we will discuss is the uniqueness of Bhagavatam in compared to all the other literatures. What is so unique about Srimad Bhagavatam? We will try to see this. In the beginning of the second canto, 10th chapter, Shukadeva Goswami talks about the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, we did discuss this topic in detail in our Brahmachari discussion, but I thought I'll share the same thing here. The 10 topics of Bhagavatam are Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshana Mutaya Manvantareshanu Kata Nirodho Muktirashraya. The 10 topics, you all know this, right? Primary creation, secondary creation, Sthanam, how the planetary systems are arranged. Poshanam, how the Supreme Lord nourishes his devotees. Uti, Utaya Karma Vasana, how the impressions that one has accumulated in this life and past lives, how it inspires actions. Then Manvantara, how in the various Manvantaras, the Manus, Manuputras, the Manvantara avatars, how they protect Dharma. Manvantarani Sadharma. Then Ishanukata. Ishanukata is short stories illustrating the pastimes of the Lord along with his devotees. Nirodha, destruction of this universe. Mukti, Hitva Anyata Rupam Surupena Vyavastitihi. Liberation, how one gives up one's false identification and gets re-established in their original constitutional position. Ashraya. Ashraya is the ultimate shelter, which is Krishna. So, these 10 topics are not 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam alone. These 10 topics are covered in all the Mahapuranas. For a literature to be qualified as a Mahapurana, all these 10 topics have to be there. But there is a uniqueness of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is mentioned in the very next verse. Dashamasya Vishuddhyartam Navanam Iha Lakshanam Varnayante Mahatmanaha Shrutena Artena Cha Anjasa. So, Dashamasya Vishuddhyartam, to impart the proper knowledge about the 10th topic, to create the proper foundation for absorbing the 10th topic, Navanam Iha Lakshanam Varnayante Mahatmanaha. The other 9 topics are discussed by Vidura, Shukadeva Goswami, Suta Goswami and others. They discuss the other 9 topics purely to create the proper appetite and purification for hearing the 10th topic of Krishna. So, this purpose is not so consistent in the other literatures. In the other literatures which talk about these other 9 topics, they are not always connected to the 10th topic. This is something which is very exclusive to Srimad Bhagavatam. Yadi Krishna Katashrayam. So, therefore, the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, all these other 9 topics are mentioned in a particular way and in a particular order to create that appetite and purification needed to access the 10th topic of Krishna in the 10th canto. Okay. So, it is just like, we all are having darshan of Radha Gopinath ji here. If you see, you may not immediately realize, but if you look at it, it becomes obvious that in the altar there are many focus lights which are fitted at strategic positions, right? One shines on the lotus feet of Gopinath ji, another shines on the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, other shines on their lotus face, like that. There are various focus lights which are fitted at appropriate places so that the devotees who take darshan of Gopinath ji can perfectly appreciate the beauty of Gopinath ji, Radha Gopinath, right? Not that the beauty of Radha Gopinath is dependent on the focus lights. Irrespective of whether the focus lights shine or not, Radha Gopinath's beauty is same. But our appreciation of their beauty will become compromised if the focus lights are not there, or if they are not there at their strategic positions. So the 9 topics are like the 9 focus lights which are shining. And the 10th topic is Krishna. Not that Krishna's power, beauty, etc. is dependent on the other 9 topics. Rather, it's the other way around. The other 9 topics are dependent on Krishna. He is the Ashraya. They are the Ashrita. So, but if they don't shine, we cannot appreciate that beauty of Krishna. So similarly, in Bhagavatam, the other 9 topics are there purely to shine light on the 10th topic. Even though we may not be able to relate how this particular topic enhances my appreciation for Krishna, we may not be able to appreciate now. Like say, for example, from Radha Gopinath temple, from temple hall, the Grant Road railway station is there in which direction? You can say. Now, of course, I know this direction, but this is which direction? This is east. Let's say, okay. Let's say east. Okay. It may be something else also. If this is east, from where I am sitting, if I start walking in the eastern direction, will I reach the railway station? Yes? No. I will hit the wall there, right? So if I have to go in the true east, I cannot go in the true east. I may have to go in the western direction little bit, then some southern direction, then some northern direction, and then eventually get out of the temple hall and then turn west, then east. So someone may wonder, if the railway station is in the eastern direction, why is he asking me to walk in the western direction? One may wonder. It may not make immediate sense until we reach the station. Oh, it makes sense. But the person who is guiding, he knows why he is doing what he is doing. Right? So, therefore, these 9 topics, sometimes we may not really able to understand how hearing this subject matter is going to enhance my appetite for hearing Krishna, about Krishna. But the person who is guiding, he knows. Because this is the condition, yadi Krishna katashrayam. Right? Just like a chef, he exactly knows when he brings an appetizer, one who knows nothing about, he knows eating, but he does not know the science of gastronomy, how the science of eating, right? So when the chef brings a bowl of soup, and then he wonders, if I drink this, my stomach will get full, then I will not be able to eat the main course. So he may say, take this away. But the chef knows that if you take that soup, it will help secrete more and more digestive juices, and it will increase your appetite. It will not subdue your appetite. But from a very gross point of view, he may think, all right, it will fill my stomach, and then I will not be able to eat the main course. One may think like that. So therefore, the acharyas know, the speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam know why these other 9 topics are there, and why they are there, where they are there, in that particular order, in order to enhance. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to a light, a lamp. Yasvanubhavam akila shruti saramekam adhyatma deepam atititirshatam tamondam. So, Bhagavatam is compared to a lamp. Bhagavatam is also compared to a sun. Krishne swadamopagate dharmagyanadibissaha kalau nashtadrishamesha purana arko aduna uditaha. It is compared to a sun. It is also compared to a ripened fruit. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava samyutam. Pibata Bhagavatam rasam. Right? It is compared to a ripened fruit which has no inferior parts like the seed or the skin or fiber, nothing. It's just pure juice. Right? And this Bhagavatam is also compared to Mohini avatar. Right? So, which gives, she gives the nectar to the Devatas and she cheats the demons. Mohini avatar. So, Srimad Bhagavatam takes the role of Mohini avatar to give the right meanings to the devotees who are compared to Devatas, and she cheats the demons by allowing them to misinterpret the words of Srimad Bhagavatam and get confused. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, whose appearance day was yesterday, this appearance day, in his commentary he explains that of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sarga and Nirodha, Sarga and Nirodha are compared to the lamp. Compared to the lamp because they reveal only the general aspect of the Lord. General aspect means how he interacts with this material world. So those general aspects are revealed in the topics of Sarga and Nirodha. Then Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Uti, Manvantara, Ishanukata, Mukti. These 7 topics are compared to the sun, which reveal even more details about the absolute truth. And when this kind of an illumination about the absolute truth happens properly, first in the preliminary level as to how the Supreme Lord deals with this material world, and then how he deals with the devotees in various forms, then one becomes ready to approach the 10th topic of Ashraya, which is compared to Rasa, the tasty fruit. So therefore, in order to find the fruit, you need some illumination. And then to appreciate the nature of the fruit, you need further illumination. Right? First, to spot the fruit, you need a lamp. Then to understand what is the nature of that fruit, you need the sun to illuminate it still further. And then you can pick up that fruit and relish it. So, all the other 9 topics are there for the sole purpose of illuminating the 10th topic. Dashamasya Vishuddhyartam Navanamiha Lakshanam Varnayante Mahatmana. And so that is why all the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam are relishable. So he says that all the 12 cantos and all the 10 topics actually act as the sun, the lamp and the moon. But these features of being the sun and the lamp are very evident in the first 9 topics. And in the 10th topic, the rasa feature is very, very evident. So therefore, the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam is personification of Krishna. Padau yadiyau, pratamadvitiyau, tritiya turyau katitau yaduru, nabis tata panchama eva shashto, bhujantaram dor yugalam tatanyau, kantastu rajan navamo yadiyau, mukaravindam dashama prafullam, ekadasho yasya lalata pattam, shiropitu dvadasha eva bhati. Tamadidevam karunanidanam tamalavarnam suhitavataram apara samsara samudra setum bhajamahe bhagavata swarupam. This is Padma Puran describing Bhagavatam as non-different from Krishna, where each of the cantos are attributed to the various limbs of the Supreme Lord. Right? So and these characteristics are very unique to Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's not there in any other scriptures. Right? So, the very second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam illustrates this. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam Vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite Kimva Parair Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate Atra Kritibihi Shushrushabhistachanat. So it is mentioned here the word Atra comes 3 times. Atra is described by the Acharyas as here and here only. No other scriptures. And again, he says Srimad Bhagavate to indicate Atra here refers to Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he adds Kimva Parair. Kimva Aparair. What is the need of any other literature? Because everything is available here. Right? So 5 times this emphasis comes in Srimad, in this very one verse. The uniqueness. What is the uniqueness? He says, Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. Atra. When one takes shelter of this literature and this literature alone, the Supreme Lord immediately manifests within the heart. The Acharyas explain, this means that as soon as one starts reading Srimad Bhagavatam, one develops prema. Sadyo, immediately. But Sadyo for whom? He says, Kritibihi. Kritibihi means one who is completely accomplished, perfected devotee. When a perfected devotee takes shelter of Bhagavatam, Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. Immediately the Lord manifests. You see in the case of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam, and already he is lolling on the ground. Right? He's like, Kurta is gone and, all Ashtasattvika Bhavas are manifest. Before the verse gets over only. Right? That is Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. Then there is the second category of people who are called as Shushrushabhihi. Shushrushabhihi means those who have developed a taste for hearing, but they are not perfected devotees. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says there are 2 categories of the Shushrushabhi. One is those who have no faith in Bhagavatam only. They don't know anything about Bhagavatam. But they are actually free of offenses somehow. Free of offenses. When they hear, then just because they are free of offenses, even without faith, immediately Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. The Lord manifests within their heart. The second category of Shushrushabhi is sadhakas like us, right? Who may have faith in Srimad Bhagavatam, but we are not completely free of offenses. So what happens? Gradually the Lord manifests within our heart, even though we have faith. So offenses, if offenses are there, then it's gradual. So in that gradual interim period, what happens? Pravishta karnarandrena swanam bhava saroruham dhunoti shamalam krishna salilasya yatasharat. The Lord enters through the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, cleanses our heart and makes it ready for him to sit there. Right? So, therefore, this is there atra, only in Srimad Bhagavatam, the manifestation of the Lord within the heart. And the second uniqueness of Srimad Bhagavatam is Vedyam Vastavam Vastu. It is the only literature which is exclusively dedicated to the Vastava Vastu, the eternally real object. What is it? The Supreme Lord, His abode, His devotees, devotion, prema, the mature form of that devotion. These are all Vastava Vastu. There is nothing other than the description of Vastava Vastu only in Srimad Bhagavatam, not in other literatures. Okay. And it says, Shivadam. If one takes shelter of this Bhagavatam, one attains ultimate auspiciousness, which is Krishna Prema. And Tapatraya Unmoolanam. Just because someone will get Krishna Prema does not mean they will be deprived of freedom from ordinary miseries. That will also happen by taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this Bhagavatam from the right outset, pra-ujjita kaitava dharma. It kicks out all kind of material religion which cheats the reader of the ultimate goal of prema. Okay, like that. So, therefore, we will read little bit more on this, and this is exclusive only with Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, when Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu talks about 5 most potent limbs, he does not say study of Bhakti Shastras. He does not say study of Shastras. He says Srimad Bhagavata Arthanam Aswadaihi Rasikaihi Saha. He says Srimad Bhagavata Arthanam. One Aswadaihi Rasikaihi Saha. One should relish the deeper meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of other like-minded devotees. That is a very potent limb. Right? So, he says, Duruha Adbhuta Viryesmin Shraddha Durestu Panchake Yatra Swalpapi Sambandha Sadhyam Bhava Janmani. He says, these 5 limbs, including Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Duruha Adbhuta Virye, they have inconceivably great potency. Shraddha Dure Astu. Shraddha to dur ki baat hai. Even if one may not have faith in them, yatra swalpapi sambandha, even little bit of touch with them, bhava janmani, it immediately leads to bhava, provided sadhyam, if they are free of offenses. If there is freedom from offenses, then without even faith it can give bhava. And this is exclusively for these 5 limbs, which includes Srimad Bhagavatam only. Right? So, therefore, this is confirmed in the, so this consistency of this purpose is there only in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's confirmed in Bhagavatam only at multiple places. One place in the 12th canto, it says, Kalimala samhati kalano akilesho harir itaratra na giyate hi abhikshnam. Iha tu punar bhagavan asheshamurtihi paripatito anupadam kata prasangaihi. It says, the Supreme Lord, who is the destroyer of all the ill effects of Kali, itaratra, in all the other literatures other than Srimad Bhagavatam, nahi abhikshnam giyate. Abhikshnam is constant. Giyate, glorified. Na, not. He, certainly. He is certainly not glorified consistently itaratra in the other literatures. Iha tu, but in this literature of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavan Ashesha Murti, the unlimited Lord, punar, again and again, anupadam, in every pada, paripatito, he is glorified again and again and again. Kata prasangaihi, on the pretext of talking about sarga, visarga, sthanam, poshanam, muti, etc., it is only the Supreme Lord who is glorified. Right? And that is why even this interesting plot is there in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, that Vidura comes to hear Krishna Katha from Maitreya. This is very interesting because Vidura is the son of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was a classmate of Maitreya, but the more accomplished classmate of Maitreya was Vyasadeva. Both learned from Parashar Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva was actually very well established. You know, he was very well known at that time as the compiler of Mahabharata, the magnum opus. So, Maitreya was wondering, you, the son of Vyasadeva, you have come to hear Krishna Katha from me? You know, sounds very awkward here. What do you expect me to do? So he says, Paravaresham Bhagavan Vratani Shrutani me Vyasamukad Abhikshnam Atrupnuma Kshulla Sukavahanam Tesham Rite Krishna Katamrita Oghat. He says, Vyasamukad, from the mouth of my father Vyasadeva, I have always heard Paresham Vratani, Avaresham Vratani. About the activities of pious people like Pandavas, impious people like Kauravas. What pious people thought, what impious people thought. How they acted, how they acted. Shrutani me Vyasa Mukad Abhikshnam. I have constantly heard these things from his mouth, from being described from Mahabharata. Atrupnuma, I was not very satisfied. Why? Kshulla Sukavahana, because it gave me very insignificant pleasure only. Why? Tesham Rite Krishna Katamrita Ogad, because there was no abundance of Krishna Kata in these narrations. It did not give me any happiness. So, Maitreya, therefore I have come to you and I am telling you, whatever you are going to speak, Yadi Krishna Katashrayam. He is going to say something similar to that. Whatever you speak, you speak, no problem. But it should nourish my affection for Krishna. If it is going to nourish my affection for Krishna, you speak about anything, no problem. But if not, then you don't speak. Right? Srila Prabhupada commenting on this verse, in his purport, he writes, Vidura explained to Maitreya his position of being fully satiated with the knowledge of mundane, social and political topics and having no more interest in them. Not that Bhagavatam does not talk about social and political topics, but Yadi Krishna Katashrayam, that purpose is not there in the other literatures. Right? He was anxious to hear transcendental topics regarding Lord Shri Krishna. Because there were insufficient topics directly concerning Krishna in the Puranas, Mahabharata, etc., he was not satisfied and wanted to know more about Krishna. Vidura wanted to hear of everything from Maitreya, and so he inquired from him, but he desired that all the topics be in relationship with Krishna. As fire is never satisfied in its consumption of firewood, so a pure devotee of the Lord never hears enough about Krishna. Historical events and other narrations concerning social and political incidents all become transcendental as soon as they are in relationship with Krishna. That is Bhagavatam, actually. That is the way to transform mundane things into spiritual identity. Like that. So, and Narada Muni also in his teachings to Vyasadeva in the first canto tells the same thing, that series. I'm not going to go through all the verses of the series because every single verse illustrates this point. Right? In the 5th chapter of first canto. Bhavata anudita prayam yesho bhagavato amalam yenai vaso na tushyeta manye tad darshanam kilam. My dear Vyasadeva, you may be very proud that you have written the Vedanta Sutra. So, but you have almost not glorified the Supreme Lord directly in that. That is why, yena eva asau na tushyeta. When the author himself is not satisfied, then how can the recipients of that literature be satisfied? So therefore, in my opinion, tad darshanam khilam, it is insufficient. So, then he says, what do you mean? I have not glorified? Have I not glorified the Supreme Lord in any of my Puranas? Yata dharmadayas charta munivaryanu kirtitaha na tata vasudevasya mahimahi anuvarnita. To the extent that you have glorified dharma, artha, kama, moksha, to that extent you have not glorified Vasudevasya mahima. Right? So he says, no, I have spoken a lot about Krishna. Narada Muni says, yes, you have spoken a lot about Krishna, but not as the goal, but as the means to attain other goals. Is that real glorification? Is that glorification of Krishna, or is that glorification of the goal? The sadhya is always more glorious than the sadhana, because one gives up that sadhana after one attains the sadhya, the goal. So if you have presented Krishna as the means to attain other goals like moksha, how is it real glorification of Krishna? It means that goal is more valuable than Krishna himself. That is not glorification. That is actually an insult. But he says, no, this is you are being too harsh on me, because in other Puranas like Padma Purana, I have glorified Krishna to be the end also, as the goal, and Shuddha Bhakti as the means to attain that end. So please don't be harsh on me. So he says, Nahi Anuvarnita, there is no continuous glorification. Here and there, somewhat glorification is not sufficient. It has to be consistent and continuous. That continuity was not there in your presentation. So which means the next literature that you are going to write should have all these qualities, which you missed out on the other Puranas. Right? Nayad vachas chitrapadam harer yasho jagat pavitram pragrinita karhichit tad vayasam tirta mushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramanti ushikshayaha. So the words may be very attractive. Chitrapadam, with all kinds of metaphors and similes and alliterations and all kinds of literary ornaments. But na karhichit harer yashaha pragrinita, if they do not glorify Krishna, which is Jagat Pavitram. The Chitrapadam is not Jagat Pavitram. Harer Yashaha is Jagat Pavitram. Tad Ushanti, then such literatures are proclaimed by Manasa. Manasa means those devotees who have captured the Lord in their minds. Those devotees proclaim such literature to be Vayasam Tirtham, a place of pilgrimage for the crows. Na niramanti ushikshayaha hamsa. And the swans living in pleasant lakes, they do not take any enjoyment in such literature. So, therefore, someone may say, oh, if that is what you are telling, then sections of Bhagavatam are also place of pilgrimage for crows. The Vamshavalis are there. The Vedic, the Sthanam, the description of the Vedic planets are there. Not direct glorification of Krishna. It should be considered as a place of pilgrimage for the crows. Right? So, he says, or if you say, no, they are not place of pilgrimage for the crows, then none of the other Puranas and works of Vyasadeva should be considered as a place of pilgrimage for the crows. Because there is nothing there which is completely devoid of glories of the Lord. Someone may make this claim. Do you mean to say only Bhagavatam is, the pleasant lake where the swans will come and enjoy, and all the other literatures are place of pilgrimage for the crows? Because Bhagavatam also contains Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Muti, etc. It is not just Krishna Katha. The other literatures also have Krishna Katha. So here he says, for this, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes this verse, Kalimala Samhati Kalano, Itaratra na giyate hi abhikshnam. In the other literatures, there is no consistent glorification. Iha tu, but in this literature, there is consistent glorification. So therefore, he says, therefore the word Vachaha, Nayad Vachaha, Chitrapadam, the Vachaha should mean the general import of the discussion rather than each sentence. Just like when the person who was guiding the person to the railway station, he was not always telling east, 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 east. He was telling west, south, north, northeast, etc. But the ultimate destination was true east only, right? So the general import of the discussion. That being the case, the chapters and stories of Srimad Bhagavatam are all ornaments of the glories of the Lord. They ornament the glories of the Lord. In other Puranas, however, many of the stories are devoid of the glories of the Lord and are therefore the place for crows. This is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti writes. Thus, there is no contradiction. Right? So, therefore, of course, there are many more glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, but this one aspect I just wanted to touch. Now, the next point is, if Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious, is everyone qualified for Srimad Bhagavatam? This question arises. Common understanding. Are you so pure that you can study Srimad Bhagavatam? Because Bhagavatam itself says, Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. One has to be completely non-envious to approach Srimad Bhagavatam. Are you non-envious? Or, it is called as Paramahamsa Samhita. Are you a Paramahamsa to approach Srimad Bhagavatam? If you are not, then you are not qualified for it. So this argument. So let's see how Bhagavatam itself addresses this argument. Is this a valid argument? Okay. So we will see who all spoke Srimad Bhagavatam and for whom they spoke. Okay. First we will take Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. For whom? Anartho pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya ajanato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. Yaya sammohito jivo atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute anartam tatkritam chapi padyate. So Vyasadeva saw in his meditation how Maya Devi was completely controlling the living entities. And because of her control, people were identifying with their bodies, and with that bodily identification, whatever they were doing, it was binding them to this material world. Then he saw anartha upashamam. In order to extricate one from this anartha, bhakti yoga madokshaje. It's possible only by bhakti yoga. But lokasya ajanato lokasya. But people of this world are ignorant of this fact. Therefore, vidwan chakre satvata samhitam. The expert Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. For whom? Ajanato lokasya. For the conditioned souls who are identifying with their body. He does not say Paramahamsas. Right? The target audience. Okay. Let's keep Vyasadeva aside for a moment. What about Shukadev Goswami? Yaswanubhavam akila shrutisaramekam adhyatmadipam atititirshatam tamondam samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam tam vyasasonum upayami gurum muninam. Samsarinam karunaya aha purana guhyam. Out of compassion for the samsaris, he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. Who are samsaris? Who are struggling in this material world, atititirshatam, with a desire to cross over the threefold miseries. For them he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. So his target audience was common conditioned souls. Forget about Shukadeva Goswami also. What about Maitreya? Maitreya spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. For whom did he speak Srimad Bhagavatam? Soham drinam shulla sukaya dukkam mahadgatanam viramaya tasya pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam yadaha sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhyaha. Soham drinam shulla sukaya dukkam mahadgatanam viramaya tasya. People of this world, in order to attain insignificant pleasures, are endeavoring so hard and suffering because of those endeavors. To put a full stop to it. Tasya viramaya pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam. I spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to put a full stop to this. For what? Full stop to these useless endeavors of these materialistic people who, for getting insignificant pleasures, are struggling so hard. So his target audience was conditioned souls of this material world only. Right? Narada Muni, in instructing Vyasadeva, he requested him to write a literature for whom? He says, Vichakshanosyar hati veditum vibo anantaparasya nivrittita sukam pravartamanasya gunair anatmanas tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam viboho. So he says that, oh Vyasadeva, the great intelligent people can study your Vedanta Sutra and come to the right conclusions. Vichakshanas. They are Vichakshanas. Nivrittita Sukam. They have completely already detached from the pleasures of this material world. Such people can take shelter of your Vedanta Sutras and come to the right conclusion. But what have you given for the gunair pravartamanasya, for those people who are tortured by the three modes in this material world? Anatmanaha, those who are struggling with their bodily identification. What literature have you given for them, for their emancipation? Tato, therefore, Bhavan, you, Vyasadev, Darshaya Cheshtitam Vibhoho, therefore you present to them the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, after reading which they can emancipate themselves from this material world. So in Narada Muni, his accusation of Srimad Vyasadev, of Srila Vyasadev, was that he had not presented a proper literature for the ultimate emancipation of the conditioned souls of this material world, who are struggling within the three modes. So therefore, in Narada Muni instructing Vyasadev to write Srimad Bhagavatam, in his mind the target audience were the conditioned souls of this material world, not Paramahamsas. Right? And so on. So, therefore then, why is Bhagavatam called as Paramahamsa Samhita then? It is called as Paramahamsa Samhita for two reasons. One is that whoever takes shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam will eventually become a Paramahamsa. Right? The second reason is only Paramahamsas can perfectly taste the sweetness of Bhagavatam. Syat Krishnanama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pittopatapta Rasanasya na Rochikanu Kintu Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta Swadvi Kramat Bhavati Tadgada Mulahantri. So a person who is afflicted with jaundice, he cannot experience the real sweet taste of the sugar candy. But according to Ayurveda, the cure for jaundice is sugarcane juice or sugar candy. Okay. So, but only the healthy person can taste the real sweetness of the sugar candy. But who needs it more? The jaundiced person needs it more. Even though he will taste it as bitter. Because avidya pittopatapta rasanasya na rochikanu. Because those senses which are covered by the bile of ignorance cannot taste the real sweetness of Bhagavatam, the holy name, etc. But adarad anudinam kalusaiva jushta. If one takes that very same medicine with respect, regulation and regularity, swadvi kramat bhavati. Gradually it becomes tasty, because the sickness, one will be cured of the disease of jaundice. So a jaundiced person, a medicine is more critical than an object of gratification. For the Paramahamsas, it is an object of gratification. For the conditioned souls, it is medicine, bhavaushada. For them, it is shrotra manobhiramat, right? For the Paramahamsas. So it is called as Paramahamsa Samhita because the exact taste of that Srimad Bhagavatam is experienced by the Paramahamsas. But the conditioned souls need that more. So therefore, one should not say that, oh, you are not pure enough to approach Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is there, Baba, where you are here. So, Bhagavatam is not meant for you. This argument is not a very valid argument. The lower you are, then the more is Bhagavatam relevant for that person. Conditioning is not an obstacle to take up to the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, the more one is conditioned, the more one needs the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. Pibantiye Bhagavata Atmanas Satam Katamritam Shravana Puteshu Sambritam Punanti te Vishaya Vidushitashayam Vrajanti Tatcharana Saroruhantikam. So, when one drinks the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam through the ear holes, then two things happen. One is for the conditioned souls. Another is for the Paramahamsas. For conditioned souls, what happens? Punantite Vishaya Vidushita Ashayam. It cleanses their heart of all kinds of material vasanas. For the Paramahamsas, Vrajanti Tatcharana Saroruhantikam. Immediately, Ishvara Sadyo Hridyavarudyate. The Lord immediately manifests. Right? So, in that, now how about then when you say that Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam, it is meant only for the Nirmatsaras. Why does Bhagavatam say like that? Let us see what exactly Bhagavatam says in that particular statement. It says, Vastavam Vastu Vedyam Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Atra. It means Vastava Vastu, the ultimate real eternal object Vedyam, it can be understood Atra through the study of Bhagavatam. By whom? Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. By the Nirmatsaras. It means the Nirmatsaras can understand the Vastava Vastu by taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. It does not say the qualification for studying Bhagavatam is not to be Nirmatsara. But it is the qualification to understand the absolute truth through study of Bhagavatam. For that one has to be a Nirmatsara. But how, if a person has Matsarya, how will he cleanse himself of that Matsarya? By study of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti commenting on this, he says, and even those who are selfish, by hearing this work, lose their selfishness. Even the selfish will have enthusiasm for hearing it, for even such persons can understand this work. So, to approach Bhagavatam, to be a Nirmatsara is not a qualification. But to understand the higher realities of Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to be a Nirmatsara. And Bhagavatam only trains that person in that direction. Right? So to say that, oh, you are not, don't think you are so advanced that you can study Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is not for you. It is not for, that's not a very valid argument. One last point I will just touch. Another thing that is often spoken about Srimad Bhagavatam is that, and rightly so, because the whole setup of Srimad Bhagavatam is such that that it is a literature which should be approached to give up this body and attain the Supreme Lord. So, but to live in this world, you need other literatures. This is one understanding that often we get to hear, that is Bhagavatam meant for living also, or is it just meant for going back home, back to Godhead? So, if you see the original question of Parikshit Maharaj, which prompted Shukadeva Goswami to speak this whole Srimad Bhagavatam, that gives some insight into this whole point about the nature of this literature. Ata prichami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purushasyeha yatkaryam mriyamanasya sarvata. So he says, Ata prichami, I therefore ask, yoginam paramam gurum, to you, O Shukadeva Goswami, you are the supreme guru of all the yogis. Samsiddhim, what is ultimate perfection? Yat karyam sarvata, what activities are to be performed at all times? Mriyamanasya purushasya, for a person who wishes to attain perfection at the time of death, what activity is to be performed at all times? So Bhagavatam is a response for that question. The very question asked is, what is to be performed at all times so that one can attain perfection at the time of death? So, therefore, if you see, generally the Shastras speak in terms of how you live is how you live, actually. There is no different thing. If you see in Bhagavad Gita also, very simple. Krishna says, Antakalecha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram, ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastratra samshayah. He says, if at the time of death you remember me, O Arjuna, you will attain me. Why? He says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tejatyante kalevaram, tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tat bhava bhavita. Because whatever you think at the time of death, that's what you are attached to. And your destination will depend on your attachment. So if you are attached to me at the time of death, you will attain me. So therefore, Krishna, in the next verse, Krishna starts with the word tasmat. Therefore. Therefore means he is going to make a conclusion. Right? So what he should conclude? Therefore, think of me at the time of death. Arjuna, Krishna should say that? What Krishna says? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha mayyarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyasya samshayah. Therefore, at all times remember me and fight, Krishna says. So if you want to remember me at the time of death, you have to remember me all times, right? What if I cannot remember you at all times? Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partanu chintayan. Abhyas karo. Practice to remember me at all time, so that you can remember me at all time. And if you can remember me at all time, you can remember me at the time of death. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says, life is the preparation, death is the examination, right? So it's not that we read a different syllabus for the preparation and write different thing in the examination. So what we read for preparation is what we write for the examination, right? So then a more fundamental question comes, are scriptures actually written that way? That some scriptures are meant to prepare one how to live, and some scriptures are meant to prepare one how to live. Are actually scriptures written that way? One has to understand. In reality, actually, scriptures are written according to adhikar. So therefore, there are dharma shastras, there are jnana shastras, there are yoga shastras, there are bhakti shastras, which are meant for people with different types of qualifications or adhikar. And all these shastras talk about how to live and how to live for the person of that particular adhikar. Bhagavad Gita itself says that. You see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Hatova prapsasi swargam, jitva va bokshase mahim, tasmad uttishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nischaya, he says. Oh Arjuna, if you fight and die, you will attain Swarga. If you fight and win, you will get the kingdom. Either way, you get to enjoy. So if a person is, so the goal of the person is to enjoy, but the action is the same, right? And if you see in Bhagavatam also, the same thing, in the second canto, when the path of yoga to attain liberation is mentioned, initially he talks about yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and the lifestyle that is needed for practicing yoga, which all the Yoga Sutras only say. The Yoga Sutras say how one should live, what are the lifestyle and everything that is needed for progressing in yoga. And ultimately towards the end, Srila Shukadeva Goswami talks about how the yogi performs Shat Chakra Yoga to raise the soul through the 6 chakras, and eventually, it can live through the Brahmarandra. Like that he says. So therefore, these literatures, they give, whether it is a Dharma Shastra or a Jnana Shastra or Yoga Shastra or Bhakti Shastra, they all speak about, for their own audience, how they should properly live and how they can live. So literatures generally speak for particular audience with a particular Shraddha or faith. And for them, the literature talks about how they can live and eventually how they can live. So, and then one last point, even if it may be true that there may be some literatures which are meant only for living, then the question is, at what age you are supposed to read that literature? Because death can come any time, right? Point to ponder. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.